Welcome back to another episode of Your Big Career Move. I'm Yeshim Nicholson, and today I'm speaking to Jennie Tipple. I've been trying to get her to come on this podcast for quite a long time, and she's been playing hard to get, but I finally got her. She's here today. She was a school teacher, and probably a bit of a spoiler alert, she still is a school teacher, but she's also become an entrepreneur and is running a very successful candle business. So thank you so much for joining me today. And Jennie, do you want to tell me why it took so long for you to agree? Because, I was starting to take it personally.
Absolutely not. I think I'm a really social person and I love chatting. And if anybody who knows me, they always say I talk too much. And then I thought, oh, I can't do a podcast. It'd go on forever and ever. And I go off in all sorts of tangents. And I was just really, really nervous. And I still am a little bit. But I thought this is my year to say yes to things and to look at everything as an opportunity. So I'm delighted to be here, and I have huge respect for you, Yesham. I love your book, and I've listened to your podcast, as you know, for a long time. I don't know, many episodes I've done now. I've done quite a few. I must be up there with some of your top fans.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I should get you a special badge. Top
Maybe. You
fan
know
badge.
where you get a badge on, yeah. Is it Instagram or Facebook? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like one of those, please.
Okay, I'll see what I can rustle up. I'll do a bit of a Blue Peter job and see what I can see what I can make you. So I'm glad you've overcome your nerves. I know you said you're still a bit nervous, but I think it's quite normal, isn't it? Because it's not something we do every day. As much as you are used to standing up in front of a group of kids and going through your lesson with them, this is quite different, isn't it? And so I totally get why you're nervous. And actually, I think it just makes you human, really, to be a bit nervous. Well, let's start with your teaching career. How did you get into teaching in the first place?
So it goes right back, actually. I had this most wonderful, inspirational drama teacher, Gladys Sheehan, and she took me under her wing. And when I was about 12, Gladys started saying, well, why don't you come and do a little bit of teaching with the little ones and, see if you enjoy it? Because I actually didn't love the acting side of it as much. I loved the, behind the scenes and the working with the children and all of that. So that's where it really started. And so she really showed me that passion for working with the new generation and the younger children. And then my mum and dad always, they've always had my back, and they've always said, whatever you want to do, once you put your mind to it and you work hard, you'll get there. So they pushed me to do my leaving cert, and I was 5 points short for primary school teaching, which it's very different. The leaving cert is very different to the A levels here, but it meant I didn't get my primary school teaching course, and I was gutted. I thought, this is it. What am I going to do? So I thought I'm going to go do a Bachelor of Arts degree in UCD in Dublin. So I did Irish history and history of art, and I loved it, but I always had that behind me thinking, I still want to be a primary school teacher. I really, really do. What can I do? What does this look like? So then I did an interview with it was a full-time course, but it was an online course as well. You could do it from home. So I went and did this, but about 2 days before my interviews, I did a kickboxing class and ended up knocking my pelvis out of place.
Oh.
So my dad, amazing man, picked me up, brought me into the interview, carried me in, and I failed the English speaking part of the interview. It wasn't like an English speaking part. It was more of an interview and why you want to do it and all. But I was dosed up on, on medication, and then I didn't get it, and I was gutted, and I thought that this is a sign I'm not supposed to do it. So I went a little bit rogue and I applied for all these jobs, and it came down to it. I had a job at Bank of Scotland, a job in a plastic surgery cosmetic clinic, really random, and another job at the governing body for sailing and boating. And I thought, oh, great, right, we've got a decision here to make. So I went to my dad, and of course, fisherman, and he was like, well, you have to go with sailing, obviously. You'd be out in the water, it'd be great. And I wasn't very outdoorsy then. And mum was going, really, Jennie? I don't know if that's exactly for you. So anyway, I took on the sailing role and I had an absolute ball. I worked there for 5 years, and every time I had that little dream come through of primary school teaching, I'd go to my boss and say, you know what, I think I have to go pursue my dream. And I think that looks like moving to England or Wales at the time. And he was going, no, here's a pay rise or a promotion, and here's a bonus. And then I'd go off happy again for another year and do it. And then I'd go back.
And Jenny,
And
you know, you've just hit on something that is so common, that every time you think, oh, I'm going to follow my dream, I'm going to pursue that thing that I'm dreaming about, somebody dangles a carrot, and then the easy option is to just stay, isn't it?
yeah, and that's what I did. I did that for 5 years, you know. It was always, okay, one more
Yeah.
year, and then that conversation would happen. But I was having a whale of a time. I was going all over Ireland, and we had the Irish Olympic team, and it was just such a great time in my life, actually, and lots of brilliant memories from it. And then my partner at the time, he was a sailor, and we said, you know what, let's just do this. Let's work out what we need to do, and we'll move somewhere where it's on this by the sea and he could still sail and all of that. Then I realized I needed biology to do teaching. I needed a science subject to do teaching in England. So I didn't do science for my leaving cert. So then I went back to my old school. I studied day and night, and I sat with the 16, 17-year-olds and did biology and passed that. And then I got into a course in Southampton, and it was 10 months, really, really intensive course. And I was in schools left, right, and center. And I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning, preparing lessons and getting ready for the next day, because it's like a performance, you know, it's like you're going on stage every day with little children. And then our relationship started to break down, and I thought, right, I have to get out of this house. And what does that look like? I had no money. I just was so close to qualifying from my primary school, my dream. And I thought, oh, I can't leave this. And spoke to my parents. My parents were like, well, you're not coming home. There's no way you're coming home here. You've got your plan in place. You're a big girl. You've got this. So with a good bit of support, my auntie and uncle came over and left a wad of money, actually, so that I could have a deposit for a house to move into in Southampton. And I did that. And then I got my first primary school teaching job in Winchester, which was my one and only interview that I'd gone for. And
I'm just going to stop you there, because you have, you know, you're telling this story so beautifully, and there are so many things that are standing out for me that I really want to go back to, if that's okay.
yeah, of course.
So, first of all, that tenacity, that you've been knocked back not once but twice, and for you to then keep going, I think is really admirable. And then the fact that you had the support from your family, which is so important. And I talk about this a lot. And generally, because I work with people in midlife, that support comes from a spouse. Not always, but a lot of the time it comes from a spouse. But obviously, you were younger at that point. So that support came from your parents. And I think it's so essential to have that support from people who are nearest and dearest to us. So to hear that your parents were like 100% behind you, because it would have been interesting to know, you know, it's the sliding doors thing, isn't it? We'll never know. But if you
What
had
would have
had
happened
that,
in Ireland?
yeah,
Yeah.
what would have happened if you hadn't had the support from your parents and the encouragement and the support from your aunt and uncle as well? I mean, how wonderful is that, to have that sort of, you've got that wind in your sails almost, that's, you know, spurring you on. How cool. We're going with the sailing analogy. Do you see what I've done there?
Absolutely. I love that. And you know, I'd met these lovely friends on my course as well. And I just think back to that time, it was just so crazy. But once I'd had the job, I had that security, and I knew I'd be surrounded. Like, every school is wonderful because you just find everyone supports each other quite well. You become like a little family because you know what you're going through, and you know how hard the job is, and everyone looks out for each other. And I had this, you know, wonderful, I think it was probably about 4.5 years in a school in Winchester, and I made some really amazing friends that I'm still really close to now. That school really set me up with really lifelong friends. And my parents, as much as my mum would have adored and still to this day would love me back in Ireland, they just knew what was right for me. They always do. Mothers always know best, don't they?
Yes, we do. Even if our children don't know.
Not yet.
What is it that you love so much about teaching?
The children. Like, it's all about the children for me. It's not about the paperwork for paperwork's sake. It's about being with the children and teaching. And when those little skills click and you're like, whoa, I did that. And they now know how to do that. And also seeing them as a whole person. And we had a lot more time years ago to kind of pause the lesson and go, that child needs me. You know, I need to go and have a chat with that child and work out what's going on. And, you know, it's the foundations of learning. If you're feeling, you know, it's like anything. If you're relaxed and you're happy and you've had enough to eat and you've had enough sleep and all those kind of basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but also having that one person to listen to makes a huge difference. And I feel like teaching these days, there's just no time for that. There's no time for that personal side.
I can't imagine that there's a single teacher that would listen to what you've just said and not be nodding along in agreement. And I think every single teacher that I've spoken to recently has echoed exactly what you've just said, that they got into the role because it was all about the kids. And then over time, things change and it feels like it's not about the kids anymore.
Yeah. And I think it comes from above, you know, and it's chopping and changing the curriculum all the time. And teachers having to rewrite these policies or these progression documents, and, you know, staying up till midnight the night before teaching is not beneficial for you or the children. You are not going to go into that classroom and be your best self. And I really struggled with that. And also, I think teachers have a big heart. You know, they want to help, they want to do more, they want to go the extra mile. There's no reward for that. There's very rare there's a thank you. And I think that's really, really difficult.
Whose thank you, just out of interest, whose thank you matters most to teachers, do you think?
I think it's, you know, senior leadership. I think that's really, really important. But I'm also really, really aware that head teachers have no support. They have nobody to say thank you to them either. And it must be a very, very lonely job, a job that I would have no interest in doing, if I'm really honest, because it just takes up all of your time, your whole being. And I think that's what happens. And I think it's any organization, you know, if your leaders aren't fresh and vibrant and energetic and feel like they're being rewarded for what they're doing. And I don't mean financially, I mean just, you know, that they're doing this for the right reasons. But there's so many different policy changes, and you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to be aware of this. And it comes from above all the way down and it filters through. And I love meeting those new teachers. And I remember being that teacher. And, you know, I always said, once I stop being that really passionate teacher about actually it's the children that matters, then it's time to kind of step to the side and really reflect and see, you know, is this the right job for me, really?
Yeah. And what I love is, and we're going to go into more detail on how you've managed to do this, but what I love is that, I mean, you clearly still have a passion for teaching. You still want to be with the kids and are inspired by working with them. And you've managed to unleash this entrepreneur within you. So can we talk about that, the transition into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so many different factors to that, I think. My dad was always just an entrepreneur of everything. So I remember he used to breed tropical fish. He used to make fish tanks, and he always talks about how I'd go in and put my little white lab coat on and go in and do the pH checks for the water and all of that. He was always looking at different ways to make money. And it used to drive my mother bananas. Like, she'd be like, oh God, what is it this time? You know? And then he started making lead weights, fishing weights, and he supplied them all over Ireland. And he's only just given that up. You know, he's a phenomenal man, but I think that really sparked it. Oh, you don't just have to have one career. You can do more, and you can follow your passions, whether that's like a little side hustle or it becomes your main thing. And for me, teaching, I don't think I'm ever going to be done with teaching. So I stayed on as governor, and I don't think I'll ever be done with teaching. I don't know what that looks like, because I'd love to help make change. I think the system's a bit broken. I think it prepares children to go into a one job career, really, you know, be a nurse, be a doctor, be a teacher. I don't think it's preparing children for the jobs that we don't even know about, you know, with AI and everything that's coming out. But I do think if we could change the system and focus a little bit more on life skills and, you know, self-awareness and, you know, breath work. And I think there is a lot of good being done at schools, but, you know, going back to kind of the holistic side, the whole child, and not just how many facts did they know about this or that. And I think that will come. I really think that will come.
Which is, you know, education has to change, I think, because, you know, that saying knowledge is power, that was totally true up until very recently. And I think now knowledge is anything but power. Every 3-year-old has access to his or her parents' phone and can find out anything about anything in about 2 seconds flat.
Yeah.
So now that we have that technology and we can find out about anything anytime, is knowledge actually really important? And being able to regurgitate knowledge, is that important? Probably not. So then I think it's quite an interesting transition now of what is important, what do we need to teach our kids? And I think you're
those
right.
life skills.
Time will tell, but it will be the life skills. It'll be practical skills. It'll be about how to apply the knowledge. I think. I mean, who knows? Well, you know, time will tell. But like you say, I think our kids are going to be in jobs that we currently can't even imagine because we just don't know how things are going to change. So yeah, interesting times for sure. And I think it's a huge challenge for education because how do you keep up with something that's changing so rapidly? You know, I didn't know what AI was a year ago, and now I use it every day. And
I know, it's
you
so
know,
true.
it changes everything. It's a massive game changer. So yeah, interesting times ahead.
And it's funny, my little one knows that she can ask Alexa anything. You know, you think, my goodness. So yeah, I do I think change is coming, and positive change. And I think mental health is really important as well. And I think there needs to be a huge focus on that. And the why is this happening to younger children, and why are they full of anxiety at the age of 7, and all of this, and what sort of pressure are we putting on them? And I think this is kind of how I fell a little bit into the industry that I'm in now, the wellbeing industry. And it's really looking for those kind of natural remedies that will help on a daily basis, as opposed to the big ones. You know, you have to go, you know, we can't all go to a lovely retreat in Bali and practice yoga. We need to be, you know, embedding these practices within our daily days, because we're living in such a fast-paced world. So I think that, alongside, my husband is severely asthmatic, and he had a reaction to a very expensive candle that I was burning. And I was going,
we won't mention any brands.
No, I won't. But I was like, don't worry, darling, just get your inhaler and go in the other room, because we are burning this candle. It smells lovely. But he was going, do you know, it's actually, my chest is tightening when you burn that, and I've got a headache. And I was thinking, it's only a candle. Like, what are you talking about? So then I started investigating a little bit further and looking into the ingredients, and I was horrified. I was horrified at what I was burning in my household around my little children, my dog, me, and my husband. And I thought, actually, there must be an easier way, you know. So I just started making my own, and then people start going, why don't you sell these? These are great. And, you know.
And this is while you're still teaching, presumably. You're still full-time employed as a teacher.
So I'm not actually.
Right.
I left.
Okay.
So I left teaching last summer.
Mm-hmm.
I left my permanent, gorgeous village school life, which I was heartbroken saying goodbye, but I haven't, because I'm stayed on it as a governor and I still do supply teaching for them. So I still have a foot in the door there, and I love it. I love going back and seeing the staff and the whole community. They're lovely community. But I thought, I'm actually going to try run the business and teach. I was doing 2 days a week. And being mummy and everything else that comes with that. And I thought, I'm going to give this a go, because I was scared. You know, I was scared to do that big jump. You know, financially, we couldn't just give up a monthly salary, to pursue a dream that we didn't even know if it was going to work. So I started making them. I'm still making them in my kitchen. I'm still making them at home, but it's grown and it's grown over the last 2 years. And when was it? Not last Christmas before, I thought, I can't do this. I can't keep up with the business and teach. And I was head of English, and there was just so many different hats that you wear in a small school. And I was up till midnight anyway, doing my planning and my subject management stuff, and then going into school. And my nervous system is broken, but it would
How
regulate.
did you know that your nervous system was broken? Because I think you've come out the other end now, and you can look back and with hindsight see that your nervous system was broken, in inverted commas. But how did it feel to you at the time?
I was stressed all the time. I wasn't sleeping well. I was snappy. I'm not a snappy person. And I was snappy with the children. And I was starting to put the kids into bed, like get them into bed, and like this pressure of, it's 8 o'clock, you should be asleep by now, because Mummy needs to go turn her laptop on and get working again, because I've got children to teach tomorrow. And it really made me stand back and think, actually, am I prioritizing other people's children over my own?
Yeah.
And that was a real moment for me. And the answer was yes, you know. And I wasn't able to give my children the support that I was giving at school. So, and even though it was only a 2-day-a-week job, but you do so much more. You know, it's never 2 days. It's, you know, any teacher that works full time, I like, hats off to them. And I did it for years. You know, I've been a teacher for 15 years, and full time means your weekend as well. So you give up those 2 days. If you're 3 days a week, you're 5 days a week. And people go, but you get all the holidays and all of that. And but actually you don't. Like, my children will tell you, and they're only 5 and 7, but they remember the summers in setting up the classroom, or, you know, it's all the extra work, all the planning, and the stress, you know, that Sunday night stress of, I've got to go in. And it's nothing to do with the children. Once you're in front of the children, you're fine. You know, you regulate again and you're teaching, and it's lovely. So that's why supply teaching for me has been a dream, like a complete dream. And I thought, I love to plan. I'm starting to learn to love to plan things, but I am a bit of a planner, but I'm an over planner. So with the 2 days a week, I'd over plan every lesson. And I'd be thinking, oh, I have to do this. And do I need to write a script? Or, you know, it was so ridiculous. When I knew how to teach, I could just go in and go, right, the objective is this, and just teach and be with the children and have fun. I was overthinking everything, because obviously you had to have your paperwork on the system, and your paperwork had to be able to be picked up by anybody if you were unexpectedly sick. So, you know, you had to add a lot of detail. And now I'm doing the supply teaching. I just adore it. I pick up somebody else's plan, which at the beginning, there was lots of sleepless nights going, oh, like, what if I don't know how to teach that? And I'm like, okay, well, if I don't know, I'm going to ask somebody, or I'm going to go with my gut. So I've had wonderful experiences in so many different schools now across Gloucestershire and Wiltshire, in Swindon. And I go in and I teach, and then I do all the marking, make sure the classroom's tidy. If I can help out with an extra thing or two, I will, because I know how hard it is on teachers. And then I go. And that is it. I switch
Fairy
off.
godmother. I mean, they must love the fact that you come flying in, you deliver something wonderful and go above and beyond, and then you leave everything beautifully and then leave. I can imagine it must be quite nice to have somebody like you on hand that can do that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I do love it, and I remember it so clearly, and I remember how hard it is, and it's, you forget to think the bigger picture. You forget about, actually what really means something to you. And are we going to get this time back with our children at this young age? We're not.
Yeah.
So I want to be present, and I want to do their spellings and their reading. I don't want somebody else to pay somebody else to bring up my children. And that's my personal opinion. But also the business, the essential oil side of it, I would, notice that I would work with essential oils and I would be chilled. Like, there was some nights I would stay up till like 2, 3 in the morning making, like, this is while I was teaching, because I was just so happy and I was in my own little place. I'd have a podcast, probably you. I'd have a podcast on and I'd be making, and I was just really happy. And I love meeting new people and going into different schools, seeing how things are done is wonderful. Meeting new people, and actually most of the schools that I've taught at, they've all requested me back, and now I have a lovely kind of group of schools that I teach at, and I don't really need the agency anymore, which is so lovely to be in that position in less than a year.
That's
and have the business. So
yeah. So
that was a very long way of going around. How did I get into Misneach Remedies?
no, no, not at all. So tell us more about the business. You said you started making them for yourself, and then people started saying, well, maybe you should sell them. So,
Yeah.
I think, again, when I speak to teachers, a lot of teachers will say, I don't know what I would do outside of teaching because that's all I've ever done. And B, gosh, I really don't have any transferable skills. And I'm always like, what, are you kidding me? Like, most teachers I know are wizards at like 100 things. But I think when you're using your skills and your strengths all the time, and you're surrounded by other people who have similar skills and strengths, you don't realize just how skilled you are. And it's only when you step out of that that you go, like, actually a head teacher I was talking to recently who's left the profession now and he's doing something totally different. He was like, I didn't realize how effective I was at getting, I'm not allowed to swear on this podcast. I want it to be child friendly. Stuff done. Yeah,
Yeah.
he said I would get so much done when I was a head teacher because I didn't really have a choice. I had to get lots of stuff done very, very quickly. And he said the pace at which his now new job goes is so much slower that it was a huge adjustment to him. He's like, oh, so I can take all day to do this one little task. I don't have to rush it. And I think that realization that actually generally as a teacher and especially as a head teacher, you're spinning 6 million plates at once. To have the luxury then to just focus on one little task at a time is like a pure luxury. Is that your experience having
That is
way?
so true. And I would have said the exact same, but I'm a teacher. What else can I do? Do I have to go and retrain again? Or, like I would just be thinking, I don't know anything. I can teach children, that's it. But it's interesting because obviously you have to have IT skills. You have to be good at communicating bad news as well to parents.
Yeah.
And you have to be good at, performing, keeping the children happy and engaged and listening. You have to behavior management. There's so many skills that are transferable that you don't realize you are doing whilst you're a teacher and you're in that job. And I think it's what was really important for me was to step back and to sit down and write down all of my passions. And I was like, well, I spent a fortune on candles. Surely it's going to be easier and cheaper to make them. And then, the diffusers came in. And then I was like, oh, I love teaching. I absolutely adore teaching. And I love meeting new people. So markets were a great way of getting my brand out there, talking to people, new customers who are now my repeat customers. I set up the website. I did the whole website myself. It's not great, but I'm like, I did that. Like before I would have been like, set up a web, and it's all of these kind of things that you have to learn when it's just you and your own business. There's nobody there you don't have the luxury of going, could you just, could you do a little bit of marketing for me? Or could you do that social post for me? And that's a bit of a minefield. And, I'm learning on the job every day, but I think I'm built for variety. And I look at the week and I go, okay, I've got supply teaching on Monday, say, and then Tuesday I might be making a batch of candles or diffusers or melts. And Friday I might be doing a workshop teaching adults. That was you were on my very first workshop. When I saw your name pop up, I was like, no, oh, not my first
Oh, I'm
one.
glad I have that effect on people.
I was like, oh, I'm going to do this podcast, and what if it's awful? But
no, it was absolutely fabulous. I mean, it genuinely was. I absolutely loved it. And I came with a friend and she loved it too. So I think your teaching skills really transferred beautifully into doing a candle making workshop for adults. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's like, obviously it's going to work. And you've done quite a few since, I see.
yeah, so I did one at Calcott Manor, which was a big pinch me moment actually, because I went thinking I was going to pitch to them. And really they were saying, well, actually, we would really like somebody to do candle making workshops and let's see how this one goes. So I did one, and then they've booked me again for another 2 dates this year. And they said, we'll do them in the mornings. And if they fill up, then we'll do afternoon slots as well. And I'm like, okay. And then I did an amazing one with the Cotswold Lakes Brewery Company. And I collaborated with Lottie, who's a Pilates yoga teacher. And she's just amazing. We did a Midsummer's Day one. And it was, I've learned so much. Trying to get candles to set on the hottest day of the year isn't easy. But, I had this amazing group of women and we completely sold out. And it was great. It just all worked. And, I think my timekeeping skills, I've definitely learned I need to work on those. But that's always been me. But yeah, so far, so good. And I've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks. So very summery Ibiza vibe one in Cirencester. And yeah, I've just got to meet all these brilliant people. And that's what I love.
Amazing. And actually, while I remember, we will put all your details in the show notes. So if anybody wants to buy a candle or a diffuser from you, or if they want to come on any of your workshops, then they'll be able to follow you and find out what you're up to and where they can get involved or buy your products. I think often when I interview people for this podcast, they go through, they talk through, oh, and then I did this and I did that, blah, blah, and they make it sound very easy. And I don't want anybody to listen to this podcast and go, well, Jennie did it and it was dead easy, so I can do it too. I think we have to be a little bit realistic about it. As much as I'm all for optimism and hope and making things as easy as possible, I'm totally for that. But I also want people to know that it isn't always a walk in the park. And there will be times, I think, when especially if you are leaving a career to set up your own business, there are going to be highs like you're experiencing now, but there will be lows,
huge lows.
100%. So can we, I don't want to put a dampener on this because we're having a wonderful time talking about how great things are going. But I just want you to perhaps talk to us about the things that weren't that easy, that, what were the challenges? And then most importantly, how did you overcome them?
I think I've had loads of challenges with it. The first Christmas I did, I had no idea how many candles I was going to sell. So I guessed and ordered some jars, and then had to then do an extra order of another 500 jars. And it was really expensive. So, you know, it didn't work in my favor at all, that, you know, that lack of planning. But I just was learning as I went. And I remember another time, my very first farm shop that I got into in the Cotswolds, and I was like very nervous, and I'd been, you know, I was still teaching at the time, and I was making in the evenings and getting this huge order ready. And I said, you know what, actually, I need to outsource something. I'm going to outsource my labels, and I want to outsource it to somebody local. So I got somebody local and collected it the night before the big, huge order was due in. Oh God. And when I think back, picked them up, cut them all out, and then went to peel the labels off and realized that they had been printed on the wrong side. So I had no labels. So then I had to go get my printer and print them all myself. I was up till 4 a.m. And I remember just crying. I was up to 4 a.m. like with this guillotine, like teacher style, you know, like cutting all these labels out and sticking them on the jars, and just crying, going, oh, they're going to think I'm so unprofessional and I'm not going to be ready by 9 a.m. And interestingly, I rang the shop at 8 o'clock or whatever, and I said, I think I'm going to be a little bit late with this order. And they were like, oh, we weren't expecting, we just meant like come in the morning. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay, all this stress. And, you know, so I think I've learned a lot about, there is going to be hiccups along the way, and it's how I respond to them. That one was like, oh, this is awful, I need to close this business, it's never going to work. And blah, blah. It was so ridiculously dramatic. But I've had to learn, you know, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and, you know, cash flow as well, like paying for markets or paying for essential oils have gone up hugely, and I don't want to put my prices up because I want to be affordable. And that's really important to me, that people can access natural products that aren't going to impact their health. That's really important to me. But the essential oils are going up, and I'm going, oh, I have to put in an order, and where am I going to get the money? But it all works out. You know, as much as I might be in a bit of a fog for a couple of days of going, oh God, stressy, but it all seems to work out, and it flows. And I think the lows are really, really important, because if we don't have those lows, then we don't realize how good life can be. You know, when we get those highs and we go, oh, that was amazing. But if we didn't have those low moments, and I think, you know, it's also the labels. So when I first start making Misneach candles, you're going to laugh at this one. I used to use paper labels. Now, where do people burn candles mainly? Well, it's in the bath. So there's me with my gorgeous paper labeled candles going, oh yeah, like I'm really eco-friendly because I'm using paper and you can just scrub them off and blah, blah. And then lovely people were sending me all these gorgeous photos of their candle in the bath. You know, you can use this on Instagram. I'm noticing all these fingerprints all over the label. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't be using like paper labels. So I went and did a market at Christmas outside, big gazebo. The weather was horrific. The roof blew off, and I've got all these paper labeled candles on the table. And I'm running after the roof, and, you know, people are trying to help me, and my stuff just gets absolutely destroyed. And the guy next to me, he was like, maybe time for a label change. And I was like, yeah. So, you know, I think you have to live these experiences out, don't you? I think I'm somebody who actually has to experience it all to learn from it, which, you know, good and bad ways. It'd be much easier if I could just read the textbook and say, don't do that, but not me. I have to.
How boring would that be if there was a textbook that just outlines everything of exactly how you should do things? I don't think it would ever work. It doesn't work with entrepreneurship as much. You know, there are millions of books out there that tell you how you should do it, but actually the best way is to just go out and do these things.
Just do it. And I think that's so important, isn't it? Just to like, feel the fear. And I think your book really illustrates that. I really wish I had that book before I started, actually. It would have really helped me, because I downloaded your questions on your website and I went through them, and I wrote out notes. And it was like, I love these sort of books anyway, where you can really like discover something new about yourself. And sitting and writing is really important for me, like that journaling process. And as I went through, I was like, oh, I actually didn't realize I was so passionate about that, or actually I don't really like that aspect of this, or these are my strengths and actually my weaknesses are these, and how am I going to work on those? And I think your book is very much about feeling that fear, but going for it, and not in a, just give up your job and run. It's a, let's have a look at all of this. Like, you go through the practicalities of, are you going to be able to survive without that permanent income every month, or, all of that. And yeah, I think there's so many challenges, and entrepreneurism is like, I don't know what it's going to hit me with next, but also teaching's very like that.
So
You're
were
fighting fires
prepared
all the
in a
time.
way for that sort of roller coaster ride that entrepreneurship is.
I think so. I think teaching really prepared me for that. And also I think I'm very optimistic when it comes to time. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll squeeze that in, I'll do that. And then I'm like, oh, that's not going to work, is it?
Do you know what?
Thankfully,
Me and my husband are often late. Like, our friends take the
yeah.
mickey out of us. We're often late for things. And I read somewhere that optimists are often late, and
Oh,
it's
really?
because they think, oh, I can just squeeze that in before we leave, or I can just, it won't take me long. I'll just quickly do that. And I think
It's so
that's
true.
true to an extent. It's not like we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs and then
I
go,
know.
oh, okay, sorry, now I'm
Yeah.
late. It's because we're like, oh, we'll just quickly do this before
Well,
we
quickly,
go.
that is so true. So, and I think it's a bit of an Irish thing as well. We are kind of fashionably late a lot, and very chilled about it. But my husband Harry isn't at all. He's such a good support, and if I didn't have his support behind me, there's no way this business would have taken off, because he just was like, yeah, go do it. Like, there's many a weekend he has the children. And the funny thing is, I did this to have work-life balance, to have more balance in my life. And I don't know what I've created really. But at the moment, I get to collect my children from school. I get to do their homework. I get to go to the park when I want to with them, get to play with them, and get to do bedtime, all of that. I get like the best of all the worlds. But I couldn't be somebody who sits at home and doesn't work. That was never going to be me. But also, if Harry didn't do all the cooking and majority of the cleaning, I don't think I could run the business and do the teaching and all of that. And his flexibility with work, he can, drop the kids off if I'm teaching one day and collect them. And we're just quite a good team. And that's really, really important. And I think if you are hoping to go on this journey, you need somebody to back you. You need somebody who is going to say, look, I've got it this month or this weekend, we can work this through. And, that teamwork is huge.
Yeah. I still haven't met somebody who's made a very successful career transition without the support of their partner. I think there was one guy that said, I just quit my job. I didn't tell my wife and I just did it. And
Yeah.
she's still angry about it now, several years later. But generally speaking, I think the people I speak to do have very supportive partners, and it's such a huge part of being able to make that transition. I think if you've got somebody who's got your back, this comes up a lot in my podcast. So if anybody is a super fan like Jennie, who's been listening to a few, then they'll be like, "Oh, here she goes again about talking about the supportive partner." But it
But
really
it's
is
true. You're
can make
right.
a break. Yeah.
You are so right. And I think it's having, and it's also the support from afar. My family, they love it. Like, they're so like, where are you this weekend, or what are you doing, or how did that workshop go? And my friends, like, I've got my best friend in Ireland, like, you know, no matter how many times I say to her, can you please not order off the website? Can I just give you some products? And she's like, no, you're running a business and blah, blah, blah. And then these orders will come in and I'm like, and she's like, yeah, will you bring that when you see me next? Or it's all that lovely support, the people around you cheerleading and actually wanting you to do well. And my biggest fear, I think, was probably that, well, what if it fails? I'm gonna look like an idiot. Like I'm, you know, oh God, it's gonna be so embarrassing.
Not
And
an
then,
idiot, an idiot.
yeah, an idiot.
Pronounce it right. Idiot.
Yeah, an idiot. Yeah,
I like it. I'm
the
going to start
Irish.
using that.
Well,
You thought you were going to look like an idiot.
an
Yes.
idiot. And I think I I then really had to real think about it. Actually, I am the one who's hardest on myself. And actually, nobody else really cares. Like, you know, they want it to work if they love me and support me. And it's for everybody, isn't it? The right people have your back,
Yeah.
and are behind you. And, you know, I've always been very inspired by women who go and do their own thing and have their own businesses and all of that. And actually, I don't know if I ever said to you about the first time I met you. So
Quite a long time ago now.
yeah, so the first time I met you was about 7 years. Yeah, about 7 years ago, because Schaefer would have been about 6 months, and I'd moved to your village, and I knew nobody, and I thought, well, I have to get myself out there, and I'd gone to this baby group. And met lovely mums and said, right, can we just get a mum's night out? And you came along for drinks that night. And I remember you and Claire was there from Berry Farm. And Kay was there, and Kay was talking about her beauty. You know, she has a beauticians in her house, and you were talking about I think, were you a consultant then and a coach? You would have been a coach then. I was trying to work this out earlier.
Yeah, I think I was running the Growth Hub,
That's it.
supporting local businesses.
That's it. And I was so inspired by the three of you. And I remember thinking, you know, wow, they're just so empowered. You know, they're strong women doing their own things and helping others. And it's so interesting how that has come full circle. That was 7 years ago. And we've only reconnected through the Berry Farm networking event. And that again was Kay messaged me going, Jenny, I've seen you've started something. Do you want to pop over and have a cup of tea? So I popped over, and then I was saying, I really want to get women together, you know, because it's so lonely, isn't it? This game, you know, running your own business. And you know, it can be very lonely, and you've nobody, you know, I feel like my staff meetings are me, myself and I, you know, I'm constantly like, Jenny, what do you think about this today? Oh, let's go with that, blah, blah. I've nobody to kind of run. As much as Harry listens, you know,
it's different though. They don't really.
It's very different. Yeah. So when I said to Kay, I was like, I'd love to get like a few of us. There's a few of us in the village that, you know, do this. So do you think we could get together or whatever? And then didn't hear anything. And then Claire messaged me out of the blue, and she said, if you want a space to do this, we can organize this. That's the three of us get together, and you know, women supporting women. And that was huge for me. And then you came to the first meeting, and then you did the workshop, the Power Hour with us, and it just has come full circle. And it's really interesting. It was only this morning that I was reflecting on it.
What a journey you've been on.
All those years ago. And if you had said I'd be sitting here today on your podcast, you know, it's
you made it happen through your determination and hard work and a passion for what you do. You've completely made it work, and I hope that your story will inspire others. Well, I say I hope it will. I'm sure it will, and I'm sure it already is. You know, I'm sure there are people within your network who are already completely inspired by what you've managed to do. So hats off to you. I want to talk to you about identity, because this is something that comes up quite a lot in the coaching that I do. I think especially when you've invested a lot of time and effort into a career, and then you step away from it, or you think about stepping away from it. I think one of the fears is that it's a subconscious fear that that your career is so much part of your identity that if I'm not a teacher anymore, if I'm not a police person anymore, if I'm not a doctor, if I'm not a lawyer, then I don't know who the hell I am anymore.
Mm.
And you've managed to, you still carry on with the teaching and become an entrepreneur. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about your identity and how much your career and what you do for a living shapes who you are as a person.
I think first and foremost, I'm a mom and a wife, and a friend and a sister, and all of those lovely titles that I have. Um, Family and friends are everything to me, absolutely everything. And to get this work-life balance back is, you know, what I want, like my dream sort of future, is that I have time with all my people. And that is more important than anything. Obviously, finances come into that as well, to be financially free and to be able to say yes to everything that I want to do with my people is most important. And then I think, then I'm a teacher, and then I'm an entrepreneur. But I don't know. And yeah, and I think my whole brand, you know, I love connecting people. I love bringing people together, and that's what I want Misneach Remedies to do. You know, Misneach Remedies isn't just about the candles and the diffusers and the workshops. It's about connection. And I don't know where that's going to lead to, or what that's, you know, going to turn into, because I have so many high hopes. Um and one of the reasons I started it was because I wanted to be a hypnobirthing instructor, because I had such lovely births with my children through hypnobirthing. Um, and so my identity is first and foremost is, you know, all those lovely, wonderful titles that I've gained in my life.
Was there ever
And
a fear of letting go of your identity of being a teacher?
no, not really, because I haven't let it go, have I? And I don't think I'm willing to let it go. I'm so passionate about it, and I don't think it's over. That journey is definitely not over, and I don't know what that looks like either. And that's what I love about life. You just never know what's around the corner, do you?
No.
And you can plan and plan and plan, but it's going to take us on a whirlwind of a journey,
Yeah.
and I'm here for it all, really.
Bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. But no, I haven't felt like I've lost my identity, but then I'm still doing it. I've just got rid of all the kind of paperwork side of it. And I also think, you know, there's so many teachers leaving the career. I think if they look at the structure a little bit better, and have people like me who go in and teach with passion and enthusiasm and who want to be there, then, you know, we're going to see children's grades go up. We're going to see, you know, there's going to be a huge knock-on effect to that. Yeah. And teachers, you know, this buzzword of well-being, actually, if that was a lived reality, you know, that teachers can leave after school instead of having to stay until 6 o'clock or whatever time, yeah, without the guilt. Yeah. And then the trust that they will turn up the next day and they will be brilliant, brilliant educators.
Yeah.
So
I think most people would really love that, because I mean, what parent doesn't want their child to be taught by somebody who is full of energy and full of passion and excitement for what they're teaching, and is interested in the kids and has the kids' well-being at the center of what they do?
There are some teachers that are so amazing at the planning, coming up with the big ideas, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And actually, if we look at teachers as not kind of having to do everything, then, you know, you've got the teacher who's brilliant at teaching, the teacher who's brilliant at planning, the teacher who wants to sit in an office without the children around them and, you know, type up the medium-term plans or the policy on this, or will spell check and do all that, you know, that sort of stuff, the background stuff that teachers are juggling everything.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's not going to work like a supply teacher going in, a different person every day, because the children need the consistency as well. But, you know, if you've got somebody who just turns up and teaches, their plans are handed over for you for the week. They just turn up and they teach and they leave, and
I mean, it's interesting that you say about the consistency, isn't it? And I've never
Mm.
really thought about that. I think certainly I think there's enough evidence to suggest that children need that consistency in terms of having, one or two adults that are there for them, that have their back, that they know they can rely on, for sure.
Mhm.
And then I wonder whether actually they need that consistency within the school. I don't know. I'm just
Mhm.
throwing it out there. Is it better to have consistency, or is it better to have maybe three or four people who show up and are brilliant at inspiring you and bringing out different parts of you? I don't know.
I think consistency is really important. From the perspective of those children spend more time at school than they do at home,
Yeah,
and they're likely to open up to a trusted adult who will
right.
listen to them. And that sometimes comes in the form of a teacher or a teaching assistant. They're superheroes, teaching assistants. They don't get enough credit. They're not paid enough. They're phenomenal.
Yeah,
And the relationships and the bonds that are built through spending that much time together is huge, and I think really, really important. But I think you could have a model that, somebody like me, Monday to Friday, my job is to go in and teach. My plans are handed to me, but I'm out the door at the end of the day to go and collect my children and be present with them. And I don't have to think about any of the other extras. Now, obviously, you've got your parent teacher meetings, and parents want to meet the teacher that's been teaching them. So, with that, but what has happened is there's, not only your staff meetings, your parent meetings, your report writing, your planning in advance, your trips. There's just
the
an endless
plays,
list of admin, the plays, it's all of that sort of stuff. And I don't have the solution, but I do think when you've got a consistent teacher, and those relationships that you build up with the children are huge. When I go back to my old school, I love it,
yeah,
absolutely adore it, and I literally can. All my kids run to me and give me cuddles, and it's all those relationships that you build up from teaching
yeah,
them
yeah,
consistently over years.
yeah.
Me
I
too.
want to ask you what your definition of success is nowadays. Do you have one?
I think previously I would have thought success was what your job title is, how much you're earning, and how you've worked your way up and progressed. How much work you're doing was also another thing, which I think is a real teacher thing.
Mm.
Like, if you're not really, really busy, well, then are you even working? Like, my husband's like, for God's sake, Jenny, I work really, really hard. I'm like, oh, your feet are up at 7 o'clock at night. Like, are you doing enough? And he's like, for God's sake, it's a different world. But
Yeah,
teachers are
yeah,
always on. And now I think success is being happy, is being able to say yes, to spend time with the people that you love, and giving back as well. I think it's so important, you know, to give back, and whatever way that looks. But I would love Misneach Remedies to grow and grow and grow, and for my brand to be like a well-known well-being brand, and I'd love to have women working for me who can be flexible, who can go, my child's really sick today, I'm really sorry, I have to leave. Like, you can't do that in teaching, and the anxiety of calling in sick because you know how many people you're letting down, and the workload for the other people are going to go up.
yeah.
That's really tricky. So I would love to have, like, I want to grow kind of organically. I don't want to go viral overnight, because actually we wouldn't eat for days if I had to make loads of candles in the kitchen. But I would love to grow the brand, and have a successful business, and get to meet loads of people. Maybe a little bit of travel in there. Harry and I joke about we're saving up for the kids, so that when they're 17, that they can choose to go backpacking or buy a car, whatever it is. And little do they know, mum and dad are going to be there with the backpacks and we're going with you.
Totally surprise.
Yeah, I definitely, we have, I did 2 years, we did 2 years in Abu Dhabi when we got married, teaching out there, and it was such an amazing experience. and you just don't know what's around the corner. And I think I wouldn't say no to, you know, if something came up that was great, then I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Let's go try it and give it a go.
Yeah. Well, I think you're well on your way to achieving whatever you set out to. You've already proven that you can achieve, you set your mind to creating this business and you have, and I have absolutely zero doubt that you'll end up taking it wherever you feel is the right place for you. So I'm
Thank
excited to
you.
watch your journey. I'm so grateful that you finally said yes to me. I hope that people take something from this conversation that they can go and explore. And who knows, maybe follow in your footsteps in whatever they're passionate about. I think your story is hugely inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Just before you go, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for listening. And secondly, this podcast has grown purely through word of mouth. So if you think you know somebody that might enjoy this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could share it with them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do, because that will mean that you won't miss any future episodes. And finally, if you're curious about making your own career change, then you might like to join my online group coaching program, which I run on a regular basis. It's named after my book, Ready to Quit Your Job. And I also offer some one-to-one coaching as well. You can find out more about both on my website, which is yescareercoaching.com. Thanks a lot.